Action. Hey, welcome to the Timmy Riggs podcast, Life in the Meantime. I haven't been on in a while, and I've got some new thoughts that I figured I would share on here for all my 10 friends to listen to. And that way it will be on the internet forever. Anyway, so the thoughts that have been reeling through my mind come to be all about social media lately, because I watched The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've watched it yet. It's on Netflix. It's basically a documentary that taps into all the engineers, presidents, leaders, all the people who created these social media platforms that now we are addicted to. And when I think about social media, I think of this. I think it's great. It's terrible. It's everything in between. That social media can't exist without it, and yet we now are beginning to feel like we can't exist without social media. So the cycle just continues on and on and on, right? It's all over Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I don't know. There's literally hundreds. And there's a lot of good that comes with it and a lot of fun. But then there's also a lot of thought. So these engineers and presidents and stuff talk about how literally it's designed to make you addicted, to make you come back for more and more. And then now it's like an online virtual mall. And basically you're constantly inundated with ads. And so that's really exhausting. And you should watch it. Okay. That's not really my point today. Well, my point is about how it affects us as human beings in our mindset and how we treat other people. So there's a book out there, and it's called The 10 Reasons You Should Quit Doing Social Media or something like that. And the guy comes out of Silicon Valley, the author. He helped start a lot of these social media companies, and now he's kind of anti-social media, right? He's flip phone, live off the grid type of person. One of his reasons not to use social media anymore, I think it's like number 8 or 9 or whatever, I don't know, is he says that social media is making you a jerk. Quit social media because it's making you a jerk. And he uses a stronger adjective, but in the attempt not to offend anyone, I will just say jerk, right? So he says that it is making you a jerk. Here's what I think. And this is just what I believe. It's not necessarily what I know. I didn't do the science. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how your brain works. Yes, I think that it is making people jerks. But I think it's more than that, exposing who people already were. Does that make sense? So I think that people were kind of already jerks. I think now we just all get to see it, right? It's one of the first times in history that your average person has an audience of 300 to 600 people, right? That's probably the average amount. And so it's like, and then there's people out there who have thousands of friends on these social media sites, right? It is now the first time in history that someone can walk into a room, quote unquote, right? The proverbial room of the internet, and say what they're thinking, thoughts that maybe are usually only in their head, and they're saying it to this giant room. But because they're just typing it in, they don't realize they're saying it, right? To all these people all at once. And somebody who, I do some professional speaking just in my job, whether it's just doing announcements or preaching or talking about business or whatever. And so when you come into a large room to talk to people, you're pretty mindful of what you're saying. And yet social media has pulled that away and made it really easy for you to just feel like, oh, I'm putting my thought out there and not thinking about the fact that 800 people are going to read it, right? So all that being said is I think the social media is only exposing who people already are at the core. I would put money, alcohol, and social media on the same team. They are not necessarily things that just immediately change you. Obviously, yes, I get the arguments. People become alcoholics. People who get rich end up, being greedy and spending it and doing all these terrible things, all this stuff. But again, I think that's just exposing who they were as people who want more and more and more, right? And I think social media is doing the same thing in a different outlet. It's showing us what someone's attitude is like, how they present themselves in front of other people, and so on. Like, I don't think Uncle John all of a sudden became this huge political loyalist just because he started following a page on Facebook. He was already that way. He just didn't have a stage to tell 500 people all at the same time, right? And I don't think so-and-so, guy or girl, whatever, all of a sudden decided to start commenting, rude things on your page and always posting things that are rude and confrontational and cause fights and stuff just because social media. I think that he or she was already doing that and you just avoided them in public, right? You just didn't want to be around them as much, and so you walked the other direction when you saw them coming. Or maybe you did, like, every now and then you were like, oh, they say something kind of funny or witty or whatever, but that's it. Like, you don't, like, they're not your best friend. So anyway, with all that being said, it also, I feel like there's biblical grounds to this. Proverbs 27:21 says this. I love it. I feel like it really works with this. It says, the purity of silver and gold is tested by putting them in the fire. So silver and gold, if they're covered by dirt and rocks or whatever, and you put it in a fire, all that stuff's going to kind of break off of it. The gold will come out and you will have it, right? Pure and purged and all that. So the purity of silver and gold is tested by putting them in the fire. So how do we test the purity of human hearts? How do we know who someone is at the core? It says this, the purity of human hearts is tested by giving them a little fame. This is a 2,000, 3,000-year-old proverb that is saying, hey, you really want to know who somebody is? Give them a little bit of influence. Put them on a little bit bigger stage. I think social media, for the first time in the history of the world, has made it to where everybody has a little bit of taste of fame. In fact, there's a song called, I don't know what it's called, but it's by Jon Bellion, and the line goes like this: the world became dangerous the minute we all became famous. And he's literally talking about social media. All of a sudden now, you immediately can talk about what you're doing, where you're at, all your thoughts, and a certain amount of people will actually pay attention and care. Where before, that was like, nobody knew before that I was at CVS having to get tampons for my wife. But now, because, you got to go and make it fun and make your friends laugh, you share it with your private friends in Instagram. I'm just saying, that's a real thing that people do, and I think that it lives into that song, it lives into the proverb, that ultimately we are seeing who people really are. So ultimately, social media is exposing the hearts of the people around us. I don't think that all of a sudden everyone is becoming meaner and more jerks. I just think that's kind of their disposition. They were able to hide it because they weren't necessarily always around you all the time. So, and I'm me too, right? Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I just know what not to put on social media. So I think that I could constantly be growing in gentleness, kindness, love, patience, self-control, right? And so I want to do that in my real life, day in and day out. I am not just trying to put everything out on social media. Anyway, because I don't want you to know that I'm a jerk, right? That's why I'm smart about what I put on there. But with all that being said, what do we do? In the meantime, how do we grow through this? Well, first of all, we got to stand up and lead, right? Those of us that are like, hey, don't put that on social media, that's weird, or that shows people that you're a jerk deep down, right? Like, we need to start telling people that, but in a loving way, not through social media. Instead, let's go to coffee and be like, hey, I see that you're always putting stuff on social media. Well, why? Right? Like, or somehow begin to have the conversation. I don't think we just have to sit idly by and be like, all right, well, I'll just delete all my social media. No, there's still a lot of fun out there. A lot of things you can use it for. I think it's great for business, obviously. And so I think there's so many ways that you can use it in a positive way. I think that we make it better by just, in general, making our lives better, like becoming just kind human beings, period, all the time. Like thinking, you know what, I don't know the whole story here. I don't have all the facts. My opinion's probably not the most important one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep living life and loving my family, having fun with my friends, doing the stuff that I do. And, that's probably going to come out on social media, where the opposite is true as well. So I don't know. I guess that was just a little bit of a rant. It's what I've been thinking about. I don't think it's a good excuse to just blame the algorithms. I think it's true. I think it's strengthening how people think and what they believe in. But I also just don't think that's the end. Like, I don't think you just say, like, well, you know, social media is making people super mean. Well, you're a human being. Like, make a decision not to let the internet decide who you are. Like, you decide that you want to be kind and nice and listen first before you speak, and do that. Don't just say, wow, social media is making me a jerk, you know? So, like, even for me, like, all of us, like, you know, go through that moment where, what is it? Comparison. Social media is the biggest thing about comparison. And, I think that, yeah, there's sometimes where I just have to say, I'm going to get off. I'm going to get off it for a little bit, and ultimately it's because I want to enjoy my life. So with all that being said, I think there's a couple things that we can do. A couple action steps. Here's what I've done. 3 things. Number 1, I put downtime on my phone. 7:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. And it's actually 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. And so 12 and a half hours where literally only calls and texts come through my phone. Okay? That's it. Nothing else. And that's just to make sure that I'm not distracted or constantly looking at my screen. Number 2, I put a social media time limit on my phone. 30 minutes. Okay? And here's what I found. I'm in and out. I go in to reply to a couple comments, post something, like a couple of my friends' pictures, and then I'm out of there. The first day I did it, I was only on Instagram for 7 minutes, which was like way better than I've ever done. And so I'm really liking it. It's only been a week that I've done this, and I've enjoyed it. I've had my phone on me way less because I'm just like, why? Like, I might as well just go sit outside and read or something, right? Third thing is clean out what you're following. And I also mean clean out, stop following some things that just continue to strengthen what you already believe. I know that's good. Like, I'm not saying like quit following the Jesus page or the pastor or whatever. I'm talking about the stuff that's confrontational and really kind of like opinion pieces, right? If you're just following that stuff, of course you're going to be like, yeah, that's right. Like, I don't even know. I literally can't even make anything up that's like not going to make somebody else mad. So, quit following only things that stir your opinion, and then ultimately just kind of stop following things that like people that you don't like, right? The people frustrate you. Because here's why. Like, at first I used to be like, no, like you got to keep following like real life. And I'm like, no, in real life, if someone bothers me, I don't hang around them. So yeah, don't follow them on social media either, right? Okay, I think that's it. But basically, that's what you can keep in mind. So you can do a little self-audit and be like, okay, social media is making me a jerk. Or if I look through my comments and everything, maybe I was just already that way. And it's just pulling out the truth of who I really am. And you can get to decide, right? Maybe you're like, yeah, I like being me. Cool. Well, people probably won't want to hang out with you. But maybe you're like, yeah, I want to be nicer. I want to be kinder. I'm on that side. Like, I just always want to be more loving, you know? And so I'd rather make sure that my social media is pulling out the best in me, not the worst. So anyway, that's that. And in the meantime, just try not to be a jerk in general.